If you've been hearing that IRS direct deposits begin July 10th, stop what you're doing and listen carefully, because this is exactly the kind of update that can catch seniors and retirees off guard. And for some people, it could mean the difference between money showing up in the bank, getting delayed for weeks, or never arriving unless they take action. If you rely on a fixed income, social security, pension payments, retirement withdrawals, or carefully timed savings to cover groceries, prescriptions, utilities, housing, and insurance, then even one tax refund delay can throw your whole month into chaos. And here's what makes this so important. The real story is not just about whether a deposit lands on a certain day, but whether you actually qualify for money, whether the IRS has the right banking information, whether a rejected direct deposit could freeze your refund, and whether a little-known July 10th deadline could affect people who may be owed money from past penalties or interest issues. So before you assume this is just another rumour, or before you assume the IRS will automatically send you whatever you're owed, you need to understand what's changing in 2026, who needs to watch their account, who needs to file something, and what mistakes could quietly cost retirees real money. Stay with me, because later in this video, I'm going to explain the one hidden problem that can cause a refund to get stuck even when the IRS already approved it. And I'll also show you how some people may be waiting for direct deposit, when what they really should be doing is checking for a deadline instead. What the IRS officially says right now is that electronic refunds are now the main direction of travel. Paper refund checks are being phased out for most individual taxpayers. Most refunds are still generally issued in fewer than 21 days when you e-file and choose direct deposit, and taxpayers should be actively checking their refund status using IRS tools instead of guessing. That matters because many people hear a date like July 10th and think everyone is getting a government payment at once, when in reality your situation depends on your tax return, your refund status, your bank information, whether you received a notice, and whether you have a special claim that requires action. The IRS and Treasury have been moving away from paper refund checks, and that means direct deposit is becoming even more important than it already was. For years, some retirees were comfortable waiting on a paper check in the mail, especially if they didn't fully trust online banking or didn't want to share account numbers. But under the newer rules, that old habit can now create delays. If you file a return without direct deposit information, the IRS can still process the return, but the refund may be temporarily frozen until you either provide banking information or request a paper check exception. And here's the part a lot of people never see coming. If you do provide direct deposit information, but your bank rejects it because of a wrong routing number, closed account, mismatched account, or invalid deposit setup, the IRS may freeze that refund instead of simply mailing a replacement check, the way many taxpayers expect. The taxpayer advocate says that in many of these cases, the IRS will send a CP53E notice telling you what to do next, and you generally have 30 days to respond. If you act quickly and update your banking information through your IRS online account, the refund can be released by direct deposit. If you do nothing, the IRS says a paper check may be issued after about 6 weeks, assuming there are no other issues. Think about that for a second. A simple banking mistake can turn what you thought was an incoming payment into a month-and-a-half delay at the exact time many seniors are trying to stretch every dollar. Imagine a retiree named Linda who files expecting a refund to help cover rising Medicare premiums, only to realise her old checking account was closed after switching banks. She assumes the money will just come by mail, but instead the refund gets frozen. A notice goes out, and precious time passes before she even understands what happened. Or imagine Robert, who types one wrong digit in the routing number and doesn't discover the error until his expected refund date comes and goes. That's why this is not just a tax story, it's a budgeting story, a retirement cash flow story, and for many people, a peace of mind story. And before I give you the step-by-step checklist you can use today, take 1 second to like this video and subscribe, because these tax and retirement updates change fast, and staying ahead of them can save you money, time and stress later. The IRS is also telling people without bank accounts to consider low-cost or no-cost banking options through banks or credit unions, and it says exceptions will still exist in limited hardship or special cases. For some taxpayers, July 10th is not just a possible date to watch the bank account. It is a deadline to protect a refund claim. The National Taxpayer Advocate has warned that tens of millions of taxpayers may potentially be eligible for refunds or abatements tied to penalties and interest from the COVID-era federal disaster period. But for many of those taxpayers, the money is not automatic. In many cases, the person must file a paper, Form 843, claim on or before July 10th, 2026, to protect the right to that refund. Let that sink in, because this is where many retirees can get confused. They hear IRS money, refund, July 10th, and direct deposit, and naturally assume there's a new payment wave about to hit bank accounts. But for some people, the bigger issue is not waiting for a payment. It's realizing that no payment comes unless a proper claim is filed first. That means if you or someone you know paid certain penalties, or interest connected to late filing, or late payment issues during that pandemic disaster timeframe, this is something worth looking into right away. It may affect individuals, small businesses, estates, trusts, and others. And the Advocate's Office makes clear that this is a filing deadline, not a universal automatic deposit date. And that matters enormously for retirees because a lot of older Americans assume that if the government owes them money, it will find them. Sometimes it does, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the burden is on you to file correctly and on time. This is especially important for seniors who had unusual tax years, inherited accounts, estate issues, side income, self-employment after retirement, or penalties they simply paid and forgot about because life moved on. If that describes you even a little, don't brush this off. Another important point is that the IRS refund system itself has rules that can delay or reduce what you receive. Your refund can be offset to pay back taxes or other qualifying debts, and the Bureau of the Fiscal Service may send a notice if part of your refund was taken for something like past due obligations. So if you were expecting one amount and received less, that does not always mean the IRS made a mistake. First, check whether you filed a 2025 return and whether you were expecting a refund at all, because the fastest way to get confused is to watch for money you were never scheduled to receive. Second, use the IRS refund tracker or your IRS online account and make sure you have the exact refund amount, your social security number or ITIN, your filing status, and the correct tax year in front of you. Third, if you already filed and the money hasn't arrived, ask yourself whether your direct deposit information was current when you filed. Did you change banks, close an account, open a new credit union account, switch from a joint account to an individual account, or use a tax preparer who may have entered the wrong information? Fourth, watch your mail carefully for any IRS notice, especially if the refund seems stalled, because a notice such as CP53E could be the difference between fixing a problem in days and waiting 6 more weeks. Fifth, if you do not use a bank account, start thinking now about backup options, because the IRS has made it clear that electronic payments are the main path going forward, even though limited exceptions still exist. 6. If you think you may fall into that July 10th claim category, involving penalties and interest from the COVID-era period, do not wait until the last minute, because that may require paper filing, and paper does not move quickly. 7th, remember that retirees also need to watch the broader tax picture this year. The IRS says eligible taxpayers aged 65 and older may qualify for an additional senior deduction for tax years 2025 through 2028, up to $6,000 per eligible person, with phase-outs above certain modified adjusted gross income levels, and that can make a meaningful difference for some households. If both spouses qualify on a joint return, that number can be even larger. That's not the same as a direct deposit by itself, but it can affect whether you are due a refund, how much you owe, and how much cash you keep. The IRS also reminds seniors that wages are still subject to withholding for income tax, Social Security tax, and Medicare tax even if you're already receiving Social Security benefits, which surprises some retirees who go back to work part-time. So if you picked up seasonal work, consulting income, or a side job after retirement, don't assume the tax rules stopped applying just because your career changed. And if any of this feels overwhelming, the IRS points seniors toward tax counselling for the elderly, VITA sites, and AARP tax aid resources, which can be a huge help for people who want a second set of eyes before they file or amend anything. The bigger message here is simple but powerful. Don't let a catchy headline make you passive. Let it make you prepared. Because the people who protect their money are not always the people with the biggest income. They're the people who check the details, act before the deadline, and fix small problems before they become expensive ones. So if you came into this video wondering whether IRS direct deposits begin July 10th and whether you're getting paid, here's the bottom line. Maybe. But not because everyone is receiving the same payment on the same day. You may be getting money if you have a valid refund in process, if your direct deposit information is correct, if your refund hasn't been offset, and if there are no errors or notices holding things up. You may also be leaving money on the table if you ignore a July 10th filing deadline that applies to a refund claim you didn't realise you had. And that is exactly why staying informed matters so much, especially in retirement, when every dollar carries more weight and every mistake feels more expensive. Please do not assume. Please do not guess. Please check. Check your refund status, check your notices, check your bank information, and check whether a special claim applies to you or someone you love. Because peace of mind in retirement doesn't just come from having money. It comes from knowing where your money is, what the rules are, and what you need to do before it's too late. And if you know another senior, retiree, widow, veteran, caregiver, or family member who could miss something important here, share this with them today. Because one update, one corrected account number, or one deadline caught in time could make a real difference in somebody's month and maybe in somebody's future.